Imagine you're 11 years old, home alone, sitting in the bathroom. It's just another ordinary day, until it isn't. That's exactly where my story begins. A story that still gives me chills to this day. A story that made me question everything I thought I knew about reality. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just like any other. Mom was at work, and I had the house to myself. I remember feeling pretty grown up about it. You know how it is when you're a kid, and you get to stay home alone for the first time. It's exciting, right? Wrong. So wrong. I was in the bathroom just minding my own business. The house was quiet, too quiet. You know that kind of silence that feels heavy? Like it's pressing down on you from all sides? Yeah, that's what it felt like. And then I heard it.
Peanut!
My childhood nickname, clear as day, coming from right outside the bathroom door. It sounded exactly like my mom's voice. Exactly. But here's the thing. My mom wasn't home. She was at work, miles away. I was alone in the house. Or at least, I was supposed to be. My heart started racing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I sat there, frozen, straining my ears for any other sound. But there was nothing, just that oppressive silence again. Maybe I imagined it, right? That's what I told myself, just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. I knew what I'd heard. With shaking hands, I slowly reached for the doorknob. I had to know. I had to see if anyone was out there. I peeked out into the hallway, empty, no one there. But guys, I swear the air felt different, colder, like something had just passed through. I ran from room to room, checking every corner, every closet. Nothing. The house was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I called my mom at work, my voice trembling as I asked her if she'd come home early. She hadn't, of course. She asked me what was wrong, but how could I explain? How could I tell her that I'd heard her voice when she wasn't there? The rest of that afternoon was a blur of fear and confusion. I sat in the living room, TV blaring, trying to drown out the silence and my own thoughts. But every few minutes, I'd whip my head around, sure I'd heard something, a whisper, a footstep, that voice again. But nothing, always nothing. When my mum finally came home, I was a mess. I told her everything, tears streaming down my face. She comforted me, told me it was just my imagination. But I saw the worry in her eyes, the doubt. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind outside my window, it all sounded like that voice, calling my name, waiting. But guys, here's the thing. That wasn't the end of it. Oh no, it was just the beginning. Fast forward a couple of years. I'm in middle school now. It's a cold, dreary weekend, and once again I'm home alone. You'd think I'd have gotten used to it by now, right? Wrong again. I'm in my room, trying to focus on homework, when I hear it again.
Peanut!
That same voice, my mom's voice, but this time it's not coming from the hallway, it's coming from downstairs. I felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest. This couldn't be happening, not again. But it was, and this time it was worse. I don't know what came over me, but I found myself walking towards the stairs. My legs were shaking so bad I could barely stand, but something was pulling me towards that voice. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard it again. Peanut. It was coming from the living room. I took one step down, then another. The stairs creaked under my weight, and I winced at each sound. What if whatever was down there heard me coming? Halfway down the stairs, I froze. There, in the shadows of the living room, I saw something, a shape, a figure. It was too dark to make out clearly, but I swear it looked like my mom. But not my mom. The shape was all wrong, too tall, too thin, and the way it moved, it was like watching a puppet on strings. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. All I could do was stare as this thing turned towards me, and then it spoke.
Peanut, come here.
That voice, My mom's voice, but wrong, so wrong. I screamed louder than I've ever screamed in my life, and then I ran. I ran back up those stairs faster than I thought possible. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out of the house. I ended up in the garage, huddled on my dad's lawnmower, shivering and crying. That's where my parents found me hours later when they came home. I told them everything. About the voice in the bathroom years ago, about what I'd seen and heard that day. They didn't believe me, of course. How could they? It sounded crazy, even to me. But I know what I heard, I know what I saw. To this day, I can't explain what happened in that house. Was it a ghost, a demon, some kind of interdimensional being? I don't know, but I do know this. I never felt safe in that house again. And to this day, whenever I hear someone call me Peanut, I freeze. I listen, and I wonder, is it happening again? I'll never forget the night I realized how fragile the feeling of safety really is. It started like any other evening. I was home alone, just me, the TV, and a cup of tea. It was late, maybe around midnight. The house was quiet, and I was halfway through some mindless show, zoning out, when I heard it. Footsteps. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. My house isn't old, but it makes noises, creaks, groans, the occasional thud from the pipes. But these footsteps were deliberate, rhythmic, and definitely coming from inside. I paused the TV, straining to listen. Nothing, just silence pressing down on me like a weight. I laughed at myself. You're overreacting, I thought, and hit play. But then I heard it again, this time louder, closer. My chest tightened, my pulse racing. I told myself it had to be something innocent, maybe a friend with a spare key. My mind darted through possibilities, anything to make sense of it. But no one had mentioned stopping by. And at this hour, I got up, my legs shaking, and walked to the hallway. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. No response. But I heard movement, the sound of someone shifting their weight. I don't know what possessed me to keep going, but I crept towards the living room. I could see the faint glow from the streetlights filtering through the curtains. And then, as I rounded the corner, my heart nearly stopped. There he was, a man sitting on my couch like he owned the place. He must have been in his 50s, maybe older, with patchy, greasy black hair that hung in uneven clumps around his face. His clothes were filthy, stained, torn, and reeking of sweat and something worse. His hands rested on his knees, and he was just staring at the blank TV screen as if he'd been there forever. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. His presence felt wrong, like he was a shadow that had stepped out of place. Finally, I managed to choke out, Who are you? What are you doing here?" He turned to look at me then, his eyes wide and unblinking. A slow, twisted smile spread across his face, revealing yellowed teeth. "This is a nice place," he said, his voice gravelly and low, like he hadn't spoken in years. I stumbled back, gripping the wall to steady myself. My phone was in the kitchen, out of reach. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't cooperate. "You left the door unlocked," he said, almost casually, as if he were commenting on the weather. I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, slowly, deliberately, and started walking towards me. I panicked. My legs finally kicked into gear, and I bolted for the kitchen. I could hear him behind me, his heavy boots thudding against the floor. My hands fumbled for the phone, knocking over a glass in my desperation. When I turned around, he was standing in the doorway, blocking my escape. His smile was gone now, replaced by a blank, almost bored expression. "You shouldn't be here," I stammered. "I'm calling the police." He tilted his head as if considering my words. Then, without warning, he lunged. I don't know how I did it. Adrenaline maybe, but I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy ceramic mug, and swung it as hard as I could. It connected with his temple, and he stumbled back, clutching his head. I didn't wait to see if he recovered. I ran straight out the back door and into the yard. My neighbors' lights were off, but I pounded on their door anyway, screaming for help. When they finally came out, the man was gone. The police arrived not long after. They searched the house, found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no sign of him. But here's the thing. When I went back inside, I noticed something I hadn't before. On the coffee table, right in front of where he'd been sitting, was a photo. It was an old picture of my family, one I hadn't seen in years. To this day, I have no idea how he got it. I'll never forget the way my brother's face looked that night, ashen, trembling and utterly hollow. He's never been one to scare easily, but what happened in that basement changed him forever. It all started when he decided to move back home for a while. My parents had converted the basement into a small bedroom, cozy and private, perfect for him and his girlfriend, Emily. They were excited to have their own little space, away from the rest of the house. But as it turns out, some places are better left alone. It was a Thursday night. I remember because I was upstairs binge-watching some show, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding below me. My brother and Emily were in the basement, lying on the bed. The room was dimly lit, with just a soft glow from the bedside lamp casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. Emily was the first to notice something. She later told me that it felt like the air had suddenly shifted, becoming heavy and cold, like stepping into a freezer. She brushed it off at first, thinking maybe the AC kicked on, but then she saw it. The girl didn't move. She just stood there, silent and still, like a statue. But there was something off about the way she was positioned, like her feet didn't quite touch the ground. My brother, trying to rationalize what he was seeing, blinked hard, thinking it was some trick of the light. But she didn't disappear. In fact, she seemed to become clearer, more defined. And then, slowly, her head tilted to the side, as if she were studying them. Emily couldn't take it anymore. She let out a stifled scream and scrambled out of bed, dragging my brother with her. They bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping over each other in their panic. When they finally made it to the living room, they slammed the door behind them and just stood there panting, their faces white as sheets. When I saw them, I knew something was wrong. My brother could barely get the words out. "There's someone down there," he stammered. At first, I thought they were playing some kind of sick joke, but the terror in their eyes was real, too real. We grabbed a flashlight and decided to check it out. I don't know what possessed me to go down there. Curiosity, maybe, or sheer stupidity. The basement was dead silent, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your skin crawl. The bed was untouched, the lamp still glowing faintly, but the doorway. Something felt wrong about that spot. Like the shadows were darker, deeper, almost alive. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my flashlight trembling in my hand, and then I noticed it, a faint outline, like a smudge on a window, right where the girl had been standing. It was cold, unnaturally so, and as I reached out, a sudden wave of nausea hit me. We didn't see her again that night, but the feeling never left. Emily refused to go back down there, and my brother started sleeping on the couch. It wasn't long before they both moved out entirely. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. A few weeks after they left, I was doing laundry in the basement. I was trying to convince myself that the whole thing was just their imagination. But as I turned to head back upstairs, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, just a flicker, but enough to stop me cold. It was the girl. She was standing in the shadows, just watching. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My legs felt like lead, my throat dry. She didn't move, didn't blink, just tilted her head the way Emily had described. I don't remember how I made it out of there, but I haven't gone back since. That basement is empty now, the door locked and the lights off, but sometimes late at night I hear noises, soft footsteps, faint giggles echoing through the vents. And every so often, when I walk past the basement door, I swear I feel her watching me, waiting. Do you believe in ghosts? Because after that night, I don't have a choice.